Hello all and welcome to the stream. Just doing a quick audio test here, making sure everything sounds nice and good for you guys. And then we will get started with some footage and the broadcast here soon. Alright, so here we are in the midst of qualifying. I am going to go ahead and just let the broadcast play, and commentary will be starting soon. Thank you all who are here watching. It is greatly appreciated, and I'm looking forward to commentating for you guys. I hope you're excited for a great race. I will talk to you guys soon. as the qualifying starts to wind down here, as we're closing in on just about 4 minutes left, I figure now it is time for a proper introduction. So hello everyone and welcome to round 4, the final round of season 7 of America's Nights, hosted by Half-Fast Gaming. As you can see, we are at Circuit of the Americas today. We have got a very excellent race ahead of us. Circuit of the Americas is a very long and intense track, for lack of any better words to describe it. If you looked at the thumbnail, that is a picture from Circuit of the Americas and what some of these curves can do to the drivers. If you can't see the thumbnail, it is an Audi R8 flying through the sky. So yeah, this track can get pretty intense. There's a lot of really sharp corners, lots of long straights, hairpins, long sweeping corners. This track has a little bit of everything, so it is really going to challenge our drivers tonight. And I don't know about you guys, but I am very, very excited to see what tonight brings. This season has been filled with lots of highs and lows from all of the different drivers. It has been very, very hectic of a season, from people crashing right off the start. I mean, Freitas won the first 2 races, and then in race number 3 crashed in one of the very first corners. So you really just never know what's going to happen, and this race is certainly no exception. I don't doubt that this is going to be the craziest race yet, so I am certainly excited to get this started. Let's go ahead and let's move the information to be a little bit more broadcasty. And let's go ahead and take a quick look through our current lineup on the qualifying. So in first currently, because he just crossed the line with the fastest time so far, is Storey with a 207.632. In second is Ruotsalainen with a 207.970. Third is Bradbury with a 208.487. Fourth is Santos with a 209.675. Fifth is Gar with a 210.062. Sixth is Hinshaw with a 210.580. Mudd in seventh with a 210.735. And Trocchio with a 211.287 is in eighth. And that is all of the valid laps that we have currently. We have got less than a minute left here in qualifying, and there is still 4 drivers left to put in a valid lap time. Those drivers are Gross, Freitas, Specht, and Arjitsu. That rounds out the total of our drivers tonight. We only have 12, so it is a bit smaller of a field. The field has kind of dwindled throughout the season, but that is A-okay. We still have many, many excellent and very talented drivers in the field. And even with 12 drivers, I'm sure this race is going to be absolutely crazy. So we have that to look forward to. But with 16 seconds left, let's see. Gross is on an invalid lap and is coming around the final corner. It is going to be close. Gross is not going to make it to the line, so he is not going to be able to put in a valid lap. Freitas is not going to be able to put in a valid lap. And Specht is also not going to be able to put in a valid lap. So those are some fast drivers that are not able to put in a lap. Arjitsu was able to get in a valid lap, and that moves him up into 7th. But he is off track. Freitas and Specht are still going to finish out their laps despite them not being valid. And Gar is our only car still out on track that is on a valid lap. Currently coming around the final corner, he is down on his delta, so that is not going to move him up And that is it for qualifying. So let's get to the starting grid. I am going to, as usual, put up that little block on the screen just to be sure that we do not give away our server information. And then once the starting grid gets set, I will go ahead and go through, show all of the drivers, and we'll talk about the lineup and give a little bit of information on the race. Alright, there we go. We have got a clean slate. No HUD in the way. And let's go ahead and go through the drivers. So, starting off in first is Storey, who has been very, very fast in the previous races, but has not been able to get a win yet. Could tonight be his night? It is going to be a tough battle for sure, because starting next to him is the 666 car of Ruotsalainen, who has qualified on pole twice and won last week. Oh, my apologies about the camera shaking. I did forget to turn off the focus, or turn off the, I should say, the lock onto the vehicle. So sorry about that. Moving on to third is Bradbury in the 87 car. Starting off in fourth is Santos in the 177 car. Starting off in fifth is Gar in the 16 car. In sixth is one of our podium finishers from last week, Mudd in the 511. Starting off in seventh is our Jitsu in that lucky 777 car. Starting off in eighth is Hinshaw with a beautiful livery there. I love that one. Starting off in ninth is the 242 car of Trokio. Starting off in 10th is Gross in the 3 car. And on our final row is the 188 car of Freitas, who is not able to put in a valid lap time, and the 77 car of Specht, who was also not able to put in a valid lap time. And I would like to note that even though these drivers are starting at the back, they are both very fast, and Freitas specifically has started in last before. He started in 15th in round 2 at Laguna Seca, and he was still able to win at that race. So do not count any of these drivers that are starting from the back out of this one. Let's go ahead and move back to the TV cams here. My apologies, I am having some technical difficulties. There we go. All right. It's not a true race broadcast without some technical difficulties, right? So, let's get all of this information back up. As the cars start to roll, let's go ahead and give you some information on this race. So, looking at the details, this is going to be another 70-minute race, just like all of the others have. If you have watched any of the previous races, then you will already know how all this works, but I am going to go through it for any of those of you who may be new. So, this race is based on a stint timer. There is no pit requirement. However, you do have to drive through the pits to reset your stint timer. The drivers have a 50-minute stint timer. So that means essentially that there is a 20-minute window in the middle of the race where they, again, simply have to drive through the pits. They do not have to pull into their pit box. They do not have to change tires. They do not have to get fuel. They simply have to drive through, and that will be enough to reset the stint timer, and they will be good to go for the end of the race. Now, with that being the case, we still, in all of the previous races, have seen many, many drivers still choose to fuel up or take tires. With it being a 70-minute race, for a lot of these vehicles, unless they choose to do a lot of fuel saving, it is it is outside of their ability to do the entire race on just one tank of fuel. So I do have a feeling that that will be the case for this race as well, especially with the really long straight and lots of hairpins. That is going to be very taxing on the fuel usage of these cars. I would highly doubt that any of these vehicles will be able to make it through the entire race without stopping for fuel. So I'm going to assume that we are going to see lots of actual pit stops, not just drive-throughs. But it is hard to say. You really never know. Someone may choose to do a different strategy and go for the fuel-saving route, but we will just have to see. In all of the previous races, the pit stops have certainly altered the field, for lack of a better term. We have seen a lot of jostling for position during the pit stops, and I just realized I still have the block on the screen. Sorry about that. But I certainly believe that that will be the case today as well. So that will be exciting. The pits really, really shake things up in the middle of the race. So even when you think you know somebody's got like a big lead and you know exactly what's going to happen, next thing you know, the pits have screwed everything up. So I don't know about you guys, but I am excited to see what will happen when those pits happen. And we are getting close to starting the race here. So the start-finish line is just past the final corner, which is interesting. A lot of tracks, it's kind of in the middle of the straight or down near the end. This track, it is right at the start of the front straightaway. So that could make for some interesting things right off of the start. We're probably going to, I guess with only 12 cars, it may not be an issue, but there is the potential that some cars will still be rounding the corner when the lights go green. And then, of course, we go down this front straightaway and then into a very wide and very sharp hairpin corner. And I'm sure things are going to get crazy there. So here we come out of the final corner, and we get ready to go green here at Circuit of the Americas. Again, this is the final round, round 4 of Season 7 of America's Nights, hosted by Half-Ass Gaming. We have got some great racing in front of us. So I made a mistake there. The start line is actually a little bit further than what it shows on the HUD. But either way, we are now green flag racing here at Circuit of the Americas. They fan out slightly, but it looks like they're staying 2 wide for the most part. Maybe a little bit of 3 wide back there where Gar is. And it looks like we are clean through the first corner. 3 wide in the back. That is Freitas that is in the middle there between Trokio and Hinshaw. In the lead, they seem to go single file, so we'll keep a look back here. It looks like Mudd and Arjitsu are battling. Arjitsu is off the track and loses it just a little bit, but not enough to spin or hit anything. Excellent save there by him. Let's see if we can see real quick what happened. Just late on the brakes and maybe a little bit of contact. Hard to tell for sure, but either way, an excellent save from both Arjitsu and Mudd there. They both avoided any incident. That is great to see. So, as I mentioned, Freitas is very fast, and like I said before, he started from last and was able to win. And in this race, just through the first few corners, he has gone from last all the way up to 7th. He has already moved up through basically half the field. Freitas is looking very, very strong despite not being able to put in any valid laps during qualifying. Storey has already pulled out a 1.5 second lead, and we are still just on the first lap, not even halfway through the lap probably. Excellent showing from Storey right off the start, but Ruotsalainen still has plenty of time, a whole hour and 8 minutes to catch up, and I'm sure, again, those pits are going to play a big part in this. Behind these drivers, we have Gar and Bradbury looks like battling for that 4th position, with Bradbury currently holding it. Mostly single file now through the field, but lots of close action. Gar looks to the inside in that corner there, but is unable to make anything work. Late on the brakes into this corner, a very odd left-hand turn. It's not sharp necessarily, but it's also not a long sweeping turn either. Hard into the brakes on the last corner. Gar gets very close to the rear bumper of Bradbury as they head down the front straight. Bradbury attempts to break the draft. weaving back and forth, and it seems that the draft has been broken, but maybe not enough. Gar goes to the inside. Let's go to the helicam here. He is there. Gar into the inside, but cannot carry the speed out of the corner as Bradbury gets a bit of the curb on corner exit, but still comes out with that 4th place. And while these two battle, Mudd has started to catch up and is right on the tail of Gar and can look to capitalize on anything that happens here. And one of those things is Gar going off track, but Mudd also goes off track. I am not entirely sure why Mudd went off there. Gar seemed to have just missed his braking point. Maybe Gar missing the braking point also threw Mudd off, but either way, they both just seemingly missed the corner entirely. Freitas did some good dodging there, while also not getting too flustered by what happened. But while we were watching that replay, it looks like Specht has now caught up to Freitas, who has caught up to Mudd. Lots of cars back to back to back, all within this short little section here. Hinshaw is also not far behind them. Again, out front, it looks like Storey has kept his almost second lead, but Ruotsalainen is slowly closing in, and Ruotsalainen does have the current fastest lap. Santos is about 3 seconds behind them, and the Bradbury and Gar battle continues with Gar to the inside here through this hairpin. There may be contact. Oh, Bradbury keeps it wide. Very clean racing through there. I'm very shocked that there was no contact. That is a very, very hard corner to make a pass through. Speaking of passing, it looks like Mudd has now been passed by Freitas, and Specht is working on the pass now. Lots of action here in this opening few laps. Freitas now looks to make the pass on Gar ahead of them. Specht does complete the pass on Mudd, so now that means Specht is into 7th, and again Freitas on the outside of Gar looking for 5th. And it is clean. Freitas now up into the top 5 within 2 laps. An excellent and very strong showing from Freitas. I don't doubt that he's going to be battling for the lead in no time. As you can see, Storey is just there, about to head into the first corner, and that means that Freitas is just roughly less than 10 seconds behind the leader. Looks like about 9 seconds. And closing very fast. I don't doubt that he will be to the leader within the next few laps, unless he makes a mistake like he did there, just a slight one. He goes off into the curbing. That is certainly not something you want to do, especially in a car like the Audi, but Freitas did manage to hold on to it, showing some excellent skill there. That is not an easy thing to do. As someone who drives that Audi very often, I can confirm that many times when I hit the curb, it is detrimental for me. So excellent showing of skill there by Freitas to not have any issues over the curb. So the drivers have started to phase out and single file just a little bit, but even with that, there are still some battles going on, and one of those is Specht, who is catching up to Gar. Remember, Specht is another driver who started far in the back, and there is a very clean pass, but Gar goes for the crossover move and cannot make it work. I believe he tried to cross it over at just a little bit, maybe too early, and caught Specht right in the middle of the corner, so Gar did have to back out and was not able to complete that crossover move that he was hoping for. So now that means that Specht is up into 6th, but Gar looks to the inside in that corner, can't make anything happen. So the two drivers who started in 11th and 12th are now currently in 4th and 6th, and you may notice I just said Freitas is now into 4th because he just made that pass on Bradbury while the Specht was making the pass on Gar. These two drivers are moving up through the field at an incredible rate. However, with that being the case, Freitas has lost a second to the leader and is now 10 seconds back. Specht is 12 seconds back, so we will have to keep an eye on that. Ruotsalainen is still about a second and a half behind Storey here as Storey starts a new lap. Ruotsalainen still has the fastest valid lap time. Storey's last lap was a 2:08.1, but it was invalid. Ruotsalainen's fastest lap was his most recent and was valid at a 2:08.942. Specht now closing in on Bradbury, just 0.3 of a second back and looking very quick, closing in very, very fast. Through the S's. Specht seems to be significantly faster through there, but Bradbury holds his line. And that is making it difficult. Oh, and he makes the pass. We didn't catch it on camera. Not sure what the cameraman was looking at there, but let's go ahead, and thankfully we've got replays. Oh, Bradbury just went wide, so he was not visible in the camera, but it was a very, very quick pass, so it makes sense why we did not catch it. But either way, that means that Freitas and Specht are now both into the top 5 after starting in the very, very back. These two lead drivers have started to really break away from the rest of the field. Storey currently has a 2-second lead on Ruotsalainen, but Ruotsalainen is almost 8 seconds ahead of the third-place driver of Santos. So even if Freitas is able to get by Santos and is running quicker, it is going to take quite a while to catch up to those lead two. But again, Freitas is very, very fast, as we have already seen. We will have to keep an eye on that as Santos makes a little bit of a mistake, and that is going to open the window for Freitas to make the pass. But Freitas is stuck on the outside for this corner, and therefore Santos is going to hold him off for at least a little bit. While this happens, Gar is battling with Bradbury and is looking to make the pass. Can he complete it? And while he completes the pass, Mudd also looks to make a pass. Gar goes wide, and that is going to give Bradbury a chance to get that position back. Onto the hard left-hander, and Bradbury will in fact get the position back. And with Gar's mistake, that is going to open up the window for Mudd and Hinshaw to both possibly make the pass there. And while that is happening, we also have the 188 car making the pass into third. Lots of action happening all at once here, all through the field. They continue to be side by side for third here, but Santos finally drops behind. So Freitas now up into third, 12 seconds back from the leader, 10 seconds back from Ruotsalainen in second, and we will have to see what he can do with some clean air. And while this happens, we do have a yellow flag, and that is Gross that we can see sliding sideways and unfortunately falling back to 12th, because he is the only driver that has had a major races that we have had so far. And it appears that we are having a slight technical issue there, but it is now fixed. And behind Gar here, we do have Hinshaw and Mudd battling for this 8th position, and Hinshaw is going to get it. So while we are focused on the Freitas and Santos battle, it looks like the 4-car battle between Gar, Bradbury, Hinshaw, and Mudd has sort of worked itself out, but now it is a new 4-car battle because Hinshaw, Mudd, Trocchio, and Arjitsu are all within about a second of each other. So we will have to keep an eye on this, and it looks like this is the closest battle out on track currently. So let's see what Arjitsu is seeing from the back of this little 4-car group. Lots of Lamborghinis here. 3 of the 4 vehicles are Lamborghinis. Arjitsu is in the back of those 3 in his McLaren. Let's see if that McLaren can show these Lamborghinis who's boss. Oh, as he goes wide and hits those curbs, like I mentioned, again, from the thumbnail, you can see that those curbs are very, very rough. And you do not want to hit those. And as we saw while riding on board there, you get a very good bit of airtime when you hit those. So that is not something you want to do too often. Taking a look from Hinshaw's rear wing, you can see that Mudd and Trocchio are stalking their prey. They are right there. And speaking of Mudd and Trocchio, Trocchio looks like he may be getting a bit of a draft, but maybe just a little bit too far. Maybe didn't get the corner exit that he was hoping for there. It certainly looked like from the rear wing of Hinshaw, it looked like that 242 car was certainly a lot closer. But then once we went to the Helicam view and took an actual look, the 242 was significantly further back than I originally thought. So, again, these drivers have started to spread out just a tad, but we will definitely have to keep an eye on that. And as I say that, Arjitsu makes a late brake effort and almost looks like he wanted to make a pass on the 242 car, but that 777 car could not make it work. Once again, the 511 car under a lot of pressure from Trocchio. Out that rear wing view, here is the long straightaway. This is going to give Trocchio a very, very big chance at getting a draft and possibly making a pass. As you can see, he's getting the draft. Can he make a pass into this corner? Again, this is a very hard corner to make a pass, and he does decide to back out of it. I believe that is a good call. Also, looks like he was going to get a bit of a better corner exit there, but then maybe a little bit of loss of traction resulted in nothing happening there. Up in front of these drivers is Hinshaw, who is looking to get past Bradbury here soon. He's staying consistent at about a second back. Up higher in the field, we have got Specht closing in on Santos now. As you will see from the passenger cam, he is now within a second of Santos and is looking like he is running significantly faster. Santos' most recent lap is a 2:10.2. Specht's is a 2:09.3, almost a full second faster. Going back up to the front as Santos goes wide, so maybe we won't go back up to the front. These two are going to be side by side out of that first hairpin corner. This is a hard area to make a pass, but it looks like Specht is going to make it work as Santos seemed to have just backed out of it there. Maybe that was for the best, but either way, that moves Specht up into fourth. And now that that has happened, let's go back to further back in the field as it looks like these drivers have closed in on each other again. Maybe not. It looked like, according to my race control information here, that they had closed in on each other, but I guess that was just a little bit of misinformation. So let's go ahead and go back to the leader, who now currently has the best lap time at a 2:08.390. Ruotsalainen is close behind at his best being a 2:08.485. Freitas is a little bit slower than both of those drivers, with his most recent and fastest lap so far being a 2:08.952. And with him being just a little bit slower, he is now 13 seconds back from the leader. Behind Freitas in fourth is Specht, as we were just talking about. He is currently 18 seconds back from the leader, and his fastest lap is a 2:09.3, so also just a little bit slower than those drivers in front of him. Santos' current lap, best lap, my apologies, is a 2:10.217. So as you can see, quite a bit of difference between these top five drivers. And going back through the field, it looks like mostly 2:10s, 11s, and 12s are the best lap times throughout the rest of the drivers, at least as far as valid lap times go. Again, with this track being so long, it is extremely, extremely difficult to get a valid lap in. I will admit that, thankfully, the track limits as far as penalties go is quite forgiving, at least from my experience. It seems fairly difficult to get a track cut warning. However, it is very easy to invalidate your laps, so that is certainly something to keep an eye on, because if there is enough invalidated laps, it is something that the stewards may want to take a look at after the race, just to be sure that there was no cheating going on. So you certainly do not want to be going off the track too much, because you don't want to be a suspicion. But again, thankfully the programmed stewards, the in-race stewards, are a bit more forgiving on this track. So again, we'll have to see how that plays out. We will still have to see if anybody does get any track cut penalties. I believe in one of the previous races we did see someone get one, and it essentially ruined their race. So of course you would love to avoid that if you can. Now, as you notice, I am still on, have my camera on mud, because this still is the closest battle out on track. These three cars are right on top of each other. And Trocchio goes to the inside, but once again cannot make it work. That 242 car is really pushing it to try and get a pass into one of these hairpins, but just has not been able to make it happen yet. Let's go ahead and take a look from the interior and see what that 242 car is up to. Oh, a lot of curb there. That is going to lose him some time. I will admit that there's not a lot of vehicles that I have driven so far in ACC, but one of the ones that I have driven is this Lamborghini, and one of the things that I find so interesting about it is that rear camera that you'll see, essentially like right in the middle of the screen and up a little bit. That rear view camera is very interesting, very helpful. I certainly like having it, and I know some drivers are not super fond of it, but I personally am one that loves it. Just an interesting little thing about that car. As the 242, right after we got off of his interior view, he went off track. Let's see what happens here. Just really late on the brakes and just goes wide, and then makes the smart decision to avoid those curbs. As I've said multiple times already on this stream, you do not want to hit those. So excellent curb avoidance there by the 242 car. However, that will move him back into 11th and give the 777 car 10th place. So now, with that battle essentially being done because of the mistake there, Mudd is now the closest. Mudd and Hinshaw are now the closest two vehicles out on track. Santos has not let Specht get away from him, though. This battle is also still pretty close. So Specht is only a half a second up on Santos. Let's go ahead and take a look from the passenger cam of Santos's vehicle and see what he is seeing what he is doing here to hold on to that 77 car. Lots of 7s again in this series. I mentioned it at the Laguna Seca race because they all started side by side. But we do have a 77, a 177, and a 777. So again, lots of them, and it could be easy to get them confused. So I'll do my best to use names for those drivers. But again, Santos continues to hold on to the back of Specht here, which is a very impressive showing from him. Storey still holding on strong out in front with a 3-second lead over Ruotsalainen. Ruotsalainen, although, again, a 3-second lead is a decent bit, that is not enough for Storey to be safe if he were to make a mistake. So Ruotsalainen holding on strong. A 3-second lead is not a ton, especially with a driver like Ruotsalainen, who is very, very fast. Again, and we do have that stint timer to think about, and when the time comes for that stint timer drive-through or pits to happen, that could also have a very strong effect on what happens here, because again, 3 seconds, when it comes to pitting, it is very easy to lose 3 seconds in the pits. So we will have to keep an eye on that. Freitas has continued to fall a little bit further behind those lead two drivers. He is now 14 seconds behind Ruotsalainen and 16 seconds behind the leader. Specht is still 6 seconds behind Freitas and 22 seconds behind the leader. And again, Santos continues to keep that pressure on Specht. He is now only 3/10 behind. So he is actually gaining back on him. So we could potentially see another battle for this 4th place position. Despite Specht having caught up to Santos quickly and getting by, it is very, very possible that Santos will be able to get that position back. Looks like that 3 car of Gross has unfortunately had some more misfortune, and that is a lot of very heavy damage. So not just some misfortune, that is a lot of misfortune, and that is very, very sad to see. Gross has shown some very, very strong outings in this season so far, and it is a bummer to see his season come to an end like that. But that is racing for you. Sometimes mistakes happen, and if those mistakes happen at a bad time, then obviously it could result in a significant amount of damage, and that is not what you ever want to see for any of these drivers. So bummer for Gross there, but again, he has shown a lot of skill throughout this series, and he does not have anything to hang his head about. We are currently looking out the back of Speck's vehicle, as Santos does lose a little bit of time through there. Again, Santos is holding strong, holding consistently about somewhere between 0.3 of a second and a second. So we will definitely be watching out for Santos to potentially make a pass at some point. Mudd continues to hold on within a second of Hinshaw. Again, not closing in, but also not losing him. Mudd's most recent lap time is quicker than Hinshaw's most recent lap time. However, the best lap times between the two drivers, Hinshaw does have the better one. So it is hard to say whose pace is better, but it looks like most recently Mudd was faster. Through the hairpin there, it does look like Mudd takes a little bit of a cutting the corner approach, whereas Hinshaw took a little bit more of a wide and get a good corner exit approach. So again, this track is very, very versatile, lots of different corners and lots of different ways to take these corners. And Mudd goes to the inside, but not close enough to make anything happen. Again, maybe just a different racing line between the two drivers. It is always hard to tell if somebody's going for a pass or if they're just taking a different racing line. But through this situation, it does look like he's going for a pass because they are side by side. Hinshaw gets out in front, but then a little bit of an odd braking section there between the two drivers as Hinshaw goes a little wide and clips some of that corner, or some of that curb. That does give Mudd a shot at making this pass happen, but seemingly cannot do so. Let's go ahead and ride along with Mudd to see what he's seeing here as Hinshaw goes very wide through that corner there, and that is finally going to allow Mudd to get by for sure and take that 8th place position. Hinshaw, however, I'm sure is not going to let him get away. Again, Hinshaw does seem to have the overall faster lap times, but Mudd seems to be running the fastest at the moment. That is the thing about consistently keeping that pressure on, is that eventually you could pressure the driver in front to make a mistake, and I feel like that was just what happened there. Mudd was all over the back of Hinshaw, getting in his head. Again, lots of late braking and kind of diving to the inside, making it look like he was going to make a pass. And I think that really just messed with Hinshaw's head, and eventually it resulted in a mistake, and Mudd was able to get that position. Ooh, a lot of curb there on the inside from Mudd. That is going to give Hinshaw a chance to maybe get that position back. Again, we will keep an eye on these guys because this seems to be the best battle on track currently. While we ride along with the 88 car, I will note Freitas has continued to lose time on the leaders. He is now 20 seconds back from Ruotsalainen and 22 seconds back from the leader. And with that, it is important to note that means that Ruotsalainen is now just about 2 seconds back from Storey. So he has closed in about a second. But again, that has been fluctuating pretty consistently throughout the whole race. Another thing to note is that Speck has seemingly started to catch up to Freitas, as Speck is now 3.5 seconds back from him. Santos still holding strong a half second back from Speck. So Hinshaw does seem to start to lose a little bit of sight of Mudd. Mudd is now a little over a second ahead. So let's go ahead and take a look at those two cars that I was just mentioning, the 177 and 77 car that are fighting for 4th and 5th. I guess they're not currently fighting, but Santos is certainly starting to close in a little bit. And you can see there from the TV camera that Freitas is now within sight. So these two could be on Freitas and looking to make that pass very soon. Our Jitsu now closing in on Hinshaw. Again, Hinshaw made that mistake that gave Mudd the position and also gave our Jitsu the chance to catch up a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a look from the rear wing of Hinshaw's car. Again, our Jitsu is roughly half a second back, seemingly much quicker through that section there, and is now all over the bumper of this 88 car. Hinshaw just seems to be a lot harder on the brakes than Arjitsu is. Arjitsu could be looking to make a pass here very soon. Let's go to the helicam so that way we get a nice, good view of it if it does happen. Arjitsu with a little sharper of a corner there through the hairpin, and that is not going to give him a very good exit. So although they're going down this long straightaway, and that would be an excellent opportunity to catch a draft, I simply think that Arjitsu got too bad of a corner exit to be able to get any draft here. And when you look from the passenger cam, I would certainly say that that can confirm based on how far away he is. So while we were looking at this, it looks like Bradbury has closed in on Gar here, and I would say that that is a pretty obvious thing now that we are right along with him, as when we switched to cameras, he was all over the bumper. So out of the corner exit, it looks like Gar got a little bit better of an exit, but Bradbury is definitely there, definitely putting the pressure on. But again, let's go back to this battle here because it is heating up. He is just a 10th back, so that means he is literally right on the bumper, and we can see it there as Hinshaw cuts to the inside, maybe going to reset his stint timer. I don't think he's within the window yet. That is going to be a very interesting call, but behind him, Trokio is also pulling in. So maybe I could be wrong. I don't... again, the stint timer reset, it's 50 minutes. And if I'm doing my math correctly, that would mean that there would have to be between 20 and 40 minutes left in the race. And there currently is 41 minutes. And while this is going on, these two drivers are pitting. Freitas has had an off, and that has given Specht third. We missed it there a little bit, but it looks like he just got late on the brakes and got a little loose and then into the wall. So now he has not only fallen back to 5th, but also has some damage to deal with. Very unfortunate from Freitas. And Specht has gotten a drive-through. I would assume that that is probably for track limits. I could have sworn track limits were a stop and go 30, but again, I haven't gotten one in a while, so I could be wrong. Either way, that is a big bummer for Specht. And along with that, he has now given Santos that position, so that does lead me to believe that it is a track limits penalty, because I would assume what he probably did, went off track, tried to slow down to be able to not get that penalty, and while he slowed down, Santos got by, got that position, and Specht still got the penalty just to add insult to injury. So lots of stuff happening all at once there, but what that now means is that Santos is up into 3rd, Specht is up into 4th, Freitas has fallen back into 5th, and then further back in the field with Hinshaw and Trokio pitting, they have moved back to 10th and 11th. But again, that is very odd for them to pit at that time. I don't think that they have reset their stint timer, so they may have to pit again. I don't know if maybe they had damage to deal with or what happened there, but either way, now we are seeing drivers that are most certainly within the window, and that is Specht and Freitas, who we both just talked about. I'm assuming Freitas is probably going to repair his damage, and Specht is probably just going to serve his penalty, because that is one important thing to note, and I should have noted this before the race, but if you have a penalty and you drive through the pits, it does not reset your stint timer. You have to have no penalties in order to do that, so Specht is going to have to pit twice here. So he pits once now, and as we talk about that penalty, Freitas has now gotten a stop and go 30 for being too fast in pit lane. He also did not fix his damage, so this is an absolutely disastrous race for him, and it looks like he is going to pull off and reset to the pits, and it looks like we maybe are having a connection issue. Oh, it looks like Specht himself may have had a connection issue, as he is now dropped from the race. So that is two very fast drivers out of the race just like that in the blink of an eye. I apologize for all my yelling, but so much has just unfolded, and I'm simply speechless. Like, actually speechless. I have never seen anything like that. We had drivers pitting outside of, I believe, outside of their pit window. not resetting their stint timer. We had a driver up in the podium positions crash, then get a stop and go 30, and then choose to reset to the pits. Then we had another driver get a drive-through penalty and then disconnect. I mean, absolute craziness. I can't even seem to keep up with it at the moment. But I guess we'll try and move on from all of that stuff. Looking back out onto the track, it looks like our Jitsu does continue to hold tight to Mudd now because Hinshaw pitted. He is 6/10 behind Mudd. Our Jitsu is, that is, not Hinshaw. And we have seen before early in the race that our Jitsu does seem to be a little bit faster than Mudd, but also seems to make some mistakes. Mudd chooses to go into the pits there. So now that will give our Jitsu that 6th position. Bradbury and Gar are now the closest battle out on track, with Bradbury being about a second behind. But again, pits are starting to happen. So as you can see on the map there on the right, drivers are very, very spread out currently because some have pitted and some haven't. But also, even of the drivers that haven't pitted, we do have a very, very large gap. And as I'm talking about that, Bradbury goes off and into the wall, and that is going to give him a fairly significant amount of damage. Let's go ahead and take a look again at what happened here. From the helicam, looks like just oversteers a little bit and gets hard into that wall. He tried to save it, simply could not, and that means he is probably going to have to repair that damage or drive the rest of the race with it. And based on how wide he went on that hairpin turn there, I'm going to say that that damage is probably having a pretty strong effect on the vehicle, and he is probably going to want to fix that damage when he drives through the pits to reset his stint timer. But again, the original point that I was getting to is that with Freitas and Specht having those issues, that means that Santos is currently 32 seconds back from second place. So first and second are only still separated by less than 3 seconds, but then from second to third is a very, very large gap. I mean, that is almost a quarter of the track that the 177 car is behind the 666. So I don't think we'll be seeing any battles for second anytime soon. However, again, with the pits happening, it is very, very possible that we will see a battle for the lead once those two drivers do stop to serve their stint, to get their stint timer reset. So while the cars do start to spread out a little bit, let's very quickly go through the current lineup. Again, it is probably going to be changing quite a bit. We have also now had 2 drivers drop out, so we are down to only 10 drivers in the race. And those 10 drivers are in first, Storey; second, Ruotsalainen; third, Santos; fourth, Gar; fifth, Bradbury; sixth, Jitsu; seventh, Mudd; eighth, Hinshaw; ninth, Trocchio; and in 10th is Gross. This has been a very, very crazy race. Again, I just can't get over, and I'm sorry to keep mentioning it, but Specht and Freitas were both putting on such an excellent show. They both started on the very back row, worked their way very quickly up into the front, into 3rd and 4th position, and then just disaster struck them both. I feel so bad for both of them because they were putting on just such an excellent show, and to have it just fall apart like that is just crushing. I simply am still in awe of what we witnessed, and now they have both been disconnected from the race. I believe Specht was out on track and running when that happened. We were watching him, so I do believe that may have been an internet issue, and then Freitas, I do believe, just chose to disconnect. So, yeah, again, very, very interesting race that we are seeing here. It has not disappointed at all. Looking at most recent laps, Ruotsalainen was in fact faster on the most recent lap than Storey was, about 0.3 faster, and is now almost exactly 2 seconds back. So again, that gap between first and second has fluctuated a little bit. Let's go ahead and ride along with Ruotsalainen while we talk about him here. that gap between first and second has fluctuated quite a bit. At some points, we have seen Ruotsalainen be about 3 seconds back, maybe even 3.5 at points. And then we have also seen times like right now where he is actually less than 2 seconds back. He's currently 1.8 seconds back. So, again, quite a bit of fluctuation here. It seems like between these two drivers, they are very, very evenly matched. And it just seems like when one driver makes a mistake, the other also makes a mistake. Or maybe, you know, it kind of mismatches. One makes a mistake, and then Ruotsalainen catches up, and then Ruotsalainen makes a mistake and loses the time that he just gained. So it is certainly going to be an interesting showing between these two. They are very, very even, and I think we have seen that also from previous races. Again, Ruotsalainen won last week with Storey finishing second, and in previous weeks we have also seen them do battle together. So we will have to wait and see what happens once this stint timer drive-through happens for these two. We're going to continue to ride along with Ruotsalainen here, and I'm just going to let you enjoy the sounds. And let's go back to the TV cams here. Again, the drivers have started to get pretty spread out. Looks like Gar is pulling in to reset his stint timer. Maybe also getting fuel or tires. Let's see. It looks like he is pulling into a pit box. We do have Al in the chat that says, nice race, good sounds. I agree. The sounds of these race cars is absolutely beautiful, and this has been a very nice race so far. Thank you for being here and watching. I do appreciate it. I'm sure all these drivers appreciate the support as well. So, yes, Gar does pull into his pit stall and is getting some sort of service. We do not know. It is not shown from our view. But either way, with Gar in the pits, that is going to give our Jitsu the 5th position. But I don't believe that our Jitsu has reset his stint timer yet. Again, that is the unfortunate thing about the only requirement being a stint timer reset, is that I cannot actually see if anyone's stint timer has been reset or not. Or at least I don't think I can. Let's take a look if I can tell from the HUD. The full HUD. It does not look like it. So, yeah, unfortunately... Oops. Unfortunately, we cannot see if anyone has reset their stint timer or not. But that is okay. Al in the chat says, I'm not here to support you. I'm here for Jeff. Well, I'm sure Jeff would greatly appreciate the support. He's currently running in 9th. He's had a little bit of a rough race, but is still putting on a very strong showing. Again, this field is very elite. Lots of very good drivers. So even finishing last, honestly, it does not say, it doesn't say anything about how good or bad of a driver you are, because everybody here is excellent. So. I should also note that Jeff has already pitted and reset his stint timer. I guess I don't know that for sure, actually, because I feel like he's pitted outside of the proper window, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Either way, I agree, Al. Go, Jeff, go. I'm rooting on everybody here. As a broadcaster, I kind of have to. Can't play favorites. Throughout the field, it looks like we've got quite a few very large gaps. Again, the gap from 2nd to 3rd has only grown. It is now 40 seconds. The gap from 3rd to 4th is 13. Another big notable gap is from 5th to 6th is 28 seconds. And then from 8th to 9th is 20. So our current closest battle actually is still the leaders. Again, Ruotsalainen is still about 2.5 seconds back from Storey. Like I mentioned earlier, that seems to fluctuate a bit, anywhere from like 1.7 to like 3.3 seconds. Currently, it is about right in the middle of that at 2.3. So, again, we will keep an eye on this. And I realize now I keep saying that. So, maybe that has become my broadcaster phrase. I will have to try to work on not saying that as much as I currently do. As you can see at the map on the right there, we have got quite a large spread between all of the vehicles currently. Let's go ahead and ride along with our leader from the interior cam. You can get an idea of what a fast lap from the leader looks like. Again, lots of pushing track limits, really trying to cut corners as much as you can without invalidating your lap or getting a time penalty. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and move on to the passenger cam. I feel like this gives us a better idea of what the driver is seeing. Again, on the curb in a lot of these corners, but some of them have a larger sausage curb in the inside, like the one that he just went through that we saw there. He did hit that sausage curb. That one specifically is not too bad of a harm if you hit it. However, that one there that he just passed, you can see that is a very, very large sausage curb, and if you hit that one, it could be very, very bad. And while we're riding along with the leader, Jeff has just set his personal fastest lap at a 2:10.117. So that is excellent to see. Let's see if he's currently up on his delta. He is not. He's currently down on his delta, so after setting a fastest lap, he is just a little bit slower than that one this time. So going back to the leader and continuing through the rest of the track, this next corner that the 584 car is going to come up to is probably one of the weirdest in my opinion. It's a long sweeping corner, but with some like sharper corners in the middle of it. You can see as we're going through here kind of what I'm talking about. And you can also kind of see it on the map that, again, it kind of makes a U shape, but not a smooth U. It's kind of like a lined U, you know. Again, I can't really describe it, but you can see it, you know, on the map and again, from riding along with Storey here. Ruotsalainen is still keeping, again, about the same gap. He's 1.7 seconds back currently after that front straightaway. But, again, that is not a whole lot of space. Storey just has to make one simple slip-up, and Ruotsalainen is there. Or, again, when they do have to reset their stint timer, pulling into the pits and trying to get down to that 50 kilometer an hour speed limit, that could, how quickly and efficiently they're able to get down to that 50 kilometers an hour could affect who our leader is after resetting the stint timers. So we will be keeping an eye on it. And while that is happening, Santos has pulled into the pit to reset his timer. Bradbury in fourth behind Santos is also going to reset his stint timer now. And that means that our Jitsu is going to get by both of them and move up into third for the time being. Our Jitsu has also put on an excellent show today, running a very, very solid and clean race. We did see him make that save early on. He went off track a little bit, got a little loose, but was able to hold on to it, not spin and not hit anything. And he has recovered quite nicely. Again, currently up in third, but he has not reset his stint timer yet. I have a feeling that once he does, he will probably end up cycling out in maybe the 6th or 7th position. But again, still an excellent showing from him today. And getting up to third at any point, even if it is because you haven't pitted yet, is still a good achievement, especially with this field. Ruotsalainen has started to close in a little bit on Storey, and he is going to take his pit now. So let's see if he can do this cleanly. And let's also see if he chooses to get fuel or if he just drives through. I know that just keeping an eye on somebody while they drive through the pits may not be the most entertaining thing to view. However, I am certainly interested to see what his strategy is going to be here. And it looks like he is just going to drive through. So he was able to maybe save fuel, or maybe the Aston Martin was just good enough on fuel as it was to make it without getting fuel. And again, Storey is in an Audi, which guzzles fuel. So I have a feeling he's going to have to stop and get some, and that will mean that Ruotsalainen is going to come out with the lead if I am correct. Again, I could end up being wrong, but for the time being, Ruotsalainen is looking very, very good and is looking at the possibility of going for back-to-back wins. Al in the chat says, "Go everyone, you all can do it," and I agree. Again, this is a very, very talented field and lots of skill throughout all of the people here. With our Jitsu pulling into the pits now, that is going to reset his stint timer. It also does not look like he is going to actually pit, so I guess he was also able to save enough fuel. With that being the case, Santos is going to move back into third. Bradbury is going to get by the 777 car, and it looks like it's going to be close here between Mudd and our Jitsu. It's going to be very close. In fact, they are going to be side by side going into this first corner, maybe? No, our Jitsu does hold on to that 5th place position. So our Jitsu did gain some time in the pits, but now Mudd is going to put the battle to him. Goes to the inside through that corner there and cannot make it work. The good thing for our Jitsu here is that although he did have to pit, normally a full pit stop, you're going to be on cold tires. Even if you did just get fuel, it's enough time for your tires to cool down enough to notice it. But in this case, he was moving the whole time, so his tires did not cool down enough, and so he is already back up to full race pace, and that means he is going to pull back away from Mudd unless he makes a mistake like he just did, and that is going to give Mudd an opportunity to catch up, but apparently not enough of an opportunity. And while this happens, it looks like our leader of Storey has pitted, and he did just drive through. He did not have to get fuel, so I did turn out to be wrong, and while I was looking at that, we have got a battle going on here between Mudd and our Jitsu, so maybe our Jitsu made another mistake, or Mudd just had some really good corners, but either way, he is now there and putting the pressure all over that 777 car for the 5th position. Our Jitsu goes really wide there, and Mudd has a very good turn. That is going to give him some good position coming into this corner, but still not good enough as our Jitsu holds him off by holding his racing line. So again, I will go back to the original point that I was making, which is that after the pits, Storey actually gained some time on Ruotsalainen. Storey is now 2.5 seconds up. Again, when Ruotsalainen pulled into the pits, he was 1.5 seconds back. So again, that pit did turn out to be good for Storey. Hopefully he has enough fuel. I guess only time will tell. With only 18 minutes left in the race, we will find out fairly soon. And as you see, Mudd has made that pass. I don't know if I will be able to go back far enough or go back for the right amount of time to be able to see the pass, but here we are in a replay just to try, and sure enough we are able to see it, and once again it was just that our Jitsu went a little wide on a corner, and that gave Mudd the position back. But I don't think that that will be the end of it. Again, these two drivers are very, very evenly matched. We have seen that time and time again, both throughout this race and throughout the entire series. You are a great announcer. Thank you so much. I certainly do my best, and I'm glad that you enjoy it. Storey is still holding on to the fastest lap time of the race so far at a 2:08.390. He is gaining a little bit of time ahead of Ruotsalainen, who's now about 3 seconds back, actually. Santos also lost time in the pits and is now 50 seconds back from Ruotsalainen. I do believe Bradbury lost a little bit of time on Santos. Can't say for sure, but either way, Bradbury is now 15.5 seconds back from Santos. So, again, the real battles on the track are still Storey and Ruotsalainen and Mudd and Arjitsu. Aside from that, all of the drivers are pretty spread out. Again, so I just mentioned essentially the top 6 gaps. From 6th to 7th is 9 seconds. 7th to 8th is 3 seconds. That's another fairly close one. And then from 8th to 9th is 17 seconds. And from 9th to 10th is a few laps. Because, again, 9th to 10th is from Trocchio to Gross. And Gross did have that issue earlier on where he hit the wall and had to repair that damage. So, yeah, a very, very spread out field. However, with only 16 seconds left, it is honestly understandable. That's usually, by this point in the race, usually there's either very, very close battles or they are very spread apart and usually no in between. So, it is not a shock to see that that is also the case here. ATG, hello. Welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being here. Hope you are enjoying. Arjitsu again not letting that 511 car go. Holding on to about a second of... Holding on to be within a second of Mudd. ATG, you are watching a broadcast of a live race from Assetto Corsa Competizione. This is round 4 of Season 7 of America's Nights, which is hosted by Half-Assed Gaming. All of the details are in the description for Half-Assed Gaming's socials and potential for getting into the race. I am glad you think that's cool. And to answer your question, no. Thank you, Al, for taking care of that. My apologies for anyone who saw those chats. But hey, it's a live stream. Anything can happen. And speaking of anything can happen, there is Arjitsu making the pass back on Mudd. Again, I told you that battle was not over, and let's go ahead and take a look back at it again from the Helicam. It looks like Mudd just made the exact same mistake that Arjitsu did, which is late on the brakes, taking the corner wide, and that gives Arjitsu the spot back. So I guess everything plays out as it should, because now these two are in the same order that they were before Arjitsu made that mistake. And the gap is about the same that it was. So now Mudd is really going to have to earn it this time. Or at least we'll assume he will. If not, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But either way, they have now swapped positions again. And I, once again, don't doubt that it could happen again. And while that was happening, Gar has closed in on Hinshaw a little bit. Last time we talked about it, he was about 3.1 seconds back. Now he is running around the 2-second mark. So this gap has closed a little bit. And I would say the fact that that gap has closed a little bit is understandable, because Gar's current fastest lap is about half a second faster than Hinshaw's, and the most recent laps from the two drivers, Gar is 0.8 faster. So Gar seems to be running quite a bit quicker than Hinshaw here. We will have to see what these lap times look like, and hitting all those curves like that is not going to help Gar catch up, and I think the time shows that as he loses about a second on Hinshaw there because of that mistake. Speaking of losing about a second, it appears that Mudd may have also just had another issue, because he is now 2.5 seconds back from Arjitsu, and just very recently he was only a second and a half back, and his most recent lap time was a 2:14, which is definitely not, I wouldn't say that that's a clean lap. So I think it is fair to say that he may have just made a few mistakes. It was not an invalid lap, but I mean, as we saw at the start of the lap, he went a little wide, and then I think he might have gone a little wide at the end there too. So losing a little bit of time. Going back to Gar, again, Gar has now lost 2 seconds just because of that little curb issue. So he is now about 4 seconds back. Going back to the leader, Storey continues to have a very strong race, leading here with just 11 and a half minutes to go. Once again, Ruotsalainen still holding that same gap. I'm honestly shocked that he's able to hold that gap to exactly, exactly two and a half seconds, rough, essentially, without actually catching up at all. It is crazy just how dead even they are. Again, very minimal mistakes from either driver, and very, very similar lap times all throughout the race. I mean, even their most recent laps are within a tenth of each other. So it's very exciting to see here these two drivers putting on a good show. These two have simply been untouchable for the entire race, even when Freitas was behind them. Again, Freitas is our winner from our first two races, so we know he's fast. He was not able to catch up to these two drivers. He was actually falling behind. So again, these two drivers are having a very, very fast, very strong race, and they are currently almost a full minute ahead of the third place driver, which is just unheard of. I don't think I've ever seen a gap that far between second and third place. That is incredible. Again, the field has started to spread out a little bit more, and with that being the case, though, and with stint timers having all been reset by this point, let's go ahead and once again go through the lineup. So in first, we do have Storey, who is 1.7 seconds ahead of Ruotsalainen in second. Ruotsalainen is 59.8 seconds ahead of Santos in third. Santos is 20 seconds ahead of Bradbury in fourth. Bradbury is 7 seconds ahead of Arjitsu in fifth. Mudd is 3 seconds behind him in sixth. Seventh is Hinshaw, who is 11 seconds back. Gar is 3.5 seconds behind Hinshaw. Trocchio is 11 seconds behind Gar, and Gross, as we know, is a few laps behind Trocchio. So again, very spread out field at this point, but Ruotsalainen does still continue to hold that gap steady. I know I've said it many, many times already in this broadcast, but it is simply incredible to see that gap has not been any less than 1.3 seconds and any more than 3.5 seconds. throughout this entire race. That is just crazy for him to hold it to that same, within 2 seconds for the entire race. That's just unheard of. I've never heard of two drivers being this close for this long of an amount of time. Oh, Ruotsalainen just set a new fastest lap at 2:08.387, and while that happens, Hinshaw has gone off the track and caused a yellow. Oh, he was gonna cut the corner, it looked like, and then tried to, in trying to keep it on track, lost control of the vehicle and spun out, and that does cost him a position to Gar. So now Gar moves up into 7th, and Hinshaw moves down into 8th, and it looks like Hinshaw is continuing to have some issues here as he goes off track again once we rejoin with him. So that is going to give Trocchio a shot, potentially, at catching up. He is a little over a second back, so we'll have to see what happens here. This could be good news for him. The 242 car does have Hinshaw in his sights. I also am led to believe that Hinshaw is probably a little flustered after the incident. Again, after the spin, it looked like he then went off track again, so we will have to see if Hinshaw can keep his composure and keep that position away from Trocchio. And while that happens, Arjitsu just set his personal fastest lap at a 2:10.66. That is a very quick lap. And again, despite Ruotsalainen having set a new best lap of the race so far, he is still 2 seconds behind Storey. So his fastest lap was a 2:08.387, like I mentioned. However, on that same lap that he ran a 2:08.387, Storey ran a 2:08.507, so only 2/10 slower. So it was not enough for Ruotsalainen to catch up at all. So they're about to cross the start-finish line here. Let's see what the lap times were this time. Again, very close. It was a 2:08.945 for Storey and a 2:09.035 for Ruotsalainen, so within a 1/10 of each other. The 242 car has started to close in on that 88. He is now within a second, so we will have to keep an eye on this. Let's see if Jeff can make that pass. Looking out the rear wing of the 88 car of Kent, you can see that Trocchio is all over the back end of this car. These two Lamborghinis have gone at it before earlier in the race and are now going at it again. Here we go down the very long straightaway. This could be a chance for Trocchio to get the draft and make the pass, but we've seen this exact situation earlier in the race, and Trocchio did have to bail out into the corner and once again does the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and take a look from the passenger cam here. 242 car got a good exit there, but it wasn't enough to be able to make a pass on the 88. And now through this section, it seems like the 88 car is just a little quicker. A really good corner for there for the 242 car, as long as he didn't clip those curbs, which he didn't. This is looking like a rough corner for Hinshaw, potentially. Well, it turns out to be a rough corner for Trocchio instead. Goes a little wide, and gets a little bit of oversteer there. Thankfully, nothing too crazy, but it certainly was enough to cost him a little bit of time. Late on the brakes there is Jeff trying to make that pass. Oh, and a very good corner exit. Gets really close to that bumper, but again, cannot make it work. Looking at their most recent lap times, the 242 car was about 0.6 faster than the 88 car. So Trokio is definitely closing in on Hinshaw here. Up front, Ruotsalainen has once again set a new fastest lap at a 2:08.292, and on that same lap, Storey ran a 2:08.83, so that means that Ruotsalainen closed in quite a bit on that lap and is now within a second and a half of the leader. So we will have to go back and take a look at that here soon once this battle fizzles out just a little bit. And it looks as though while they go down this straightaway that it has, at least for the time being. So let's see what Ruotsalainen is seeing out his front windshield. You can see that Storey has definitely gotten a little closer, but it is still not close enough for it to be anything I think Storey should worry about right away. And especially with only a minute and a half left, this actually could end up being the last lap. But looking at where they are on track, I don't think it will be. I have a feeling we will do one more lap after this. Let's go back to the battle here as it has closed up again, and in the exact same spot that it closed up last time. But now as soon as we get on board to look at this battle, it seems like the gap has grown again by just a little bit. So these two are actually right in front of the leaders. So this potential, the leaders could potentially catch up to these two, and that could have an effect on both this battle and the battle for the win. So there you see Storey in the background coming around the final corner, which means that we are going to have one more lap. And while we do have that one more lap, Trokio looks to the inside, and of course, I am having some technical difficulties right as they start the final lap. That is extremely unfortunate. Let's see if I can get something working here. My apologies, folks. It is a live broadcast. Anything can happen, and unfortunately, bad things just happened. Okay, I was able to get reconnected here. My cameras are not looking right, and there now you have game sound. I didn't know there was flying cars in this game. Well, yeah, there's not supposed to be. And oh, my information is not accurate. Okay, so my race information is not showing me the correct information, so unfortunately I'm kind of just flying blind here as far as what's happening. It's saying that certain drivers have finished that most definitely have not. So again, my apologies for the technical difficulties, but either way, we know that this is for the win because we were watching it happen before the race finished. Ruotsalainen is very close, but coming into the last set of corners, I don't believe he is going to be close enough unless Storey makes some kind of catastrophic mistake in this final corner. And he does not. He does get a little bit of curves, but it is not enough. And that means that Storey is going to win the final round of America's Nights, and Ruotsalainen is going to come through in second. An excellent showing from these two drivers, and while this happens, these two drivers were just ahead of the leaders, and therefore they are on their final lap and are still battling for this 8th place position side by side through the first corner, and now battling through the S's. Hinshaw backs out, and that means Trokio is going to move up into 8th position on the final lap. Excellent to see from him. Moving back to the other cars in the race, in 3rd place is Santos. He still has a few corners to go. Again, as we know, He was more than a minute behind the 2 leaders. However, even with him being a minute behind, it is worth noting that he has had an excellent race and was very well deserving of this 3rd place position, and it is looking like he has got it pretty much locked in, as Bradbury is 20 seconds behind him. And here come Gross and Santos into the final corner. Gross, unfortunately, again, could not overcome his issue that he had earlier on in the race and will finish 10th. And Santos will finish in 3rd place to round out our podium. Looking behind these drivers, we do have Bradbury and Arjitsu, which are right on top of each other, but Arjitsu is simply not close enough to make the pass, and that means that Bradbury is going to come across in 4th, with Arjitsu in 5th. Behind them by a couple seconds is Mudd, who now rounds the final corner, and he is going to finish in 6th. An excellent showing from him as well. Next driver to be coming across the finish line is going to be the 16 car of Gar. Out of the final corner, there it is. He finishes 7th. And our final driver out on track, because I do believe that the 88 car of Hinshaw had an issue. It is going to be the 242 car of Jeff Trocchio rounding out the field and finishing 8th. And again, Hinshaw appeared to have had an issue and is not going to make it to the finish line, but he will finish 9th. So we did end up having a few drivers drop out, but nonetheless, it was still an absolutely fantastic race and an absolutely fantastic season. A huge thank you to all of the drivers for putting on such an excellent show for us this season and this race. I hope to see you guys again soon. I don't believe that I will be doing any more broadcasts on this channel. It is likely that if I were to do more broadcasts, it could be on the HFG channel. I guess make sure to follow Half-Ass Gaming on social medias. And if you are not already subscribed to me, and following me on social media, I will also post about it if I do end up doing it on my channel or on HFG's channel. Either way, again, thank you all so much, drivers and spectators, for such a fantastic season. I had absolutely such an awesome experience learning to broadcast, and I had a ton of fun, and I hope you guys did too. With that being said, I will hopefully see you guys again soon. I hope you have an excellent rest of your night. Peace out.